Donald Trump just went ahead and tried to dismantle the Department of Education, and honestly, at this point, we should all just be used to it. He's been pulling moves like this at the end of almost every week just to grab the headlines, and we could call it another bad idea that pushes the country to the edge and end the video right there. But let's actually take a step back and break it down with no bias and no emotion. Today I'm going to ask ChatGPT what it thinks about this move, why Trump's actually doing it, and whether it actually changes anything at all. And by the end, I'll have ChatGPT basically jump inside of Trump's head and tell us how he sees the future of the United States without the Department of Education and what the actual plan is. But before we get started, I just want to say that your likes and subscriptions really help the channel to grow. If you're enjoying this conversation with AI, don't forget to hit all of those buttons while you're watching. Thanks in advance, and now let's get into the chat. And here we are. First, ChatGPT needs to gather up all the latest information to be fully up to date, and then I'll ask the first question. All right, now it's ready. It needs to be clear, straightforward, absolutely unbiased. Call a spade, no sugarcoating or fluff or any of that junk. And first off, I just want to ask why Donald Trump decided to dismantle the Department of Education and what ChatGPT thinks about that move. And here's the first answer. Trump did this because it fires up his base, not because it's actually going to happen. Killing the Department of Education has been a right-wing fantasy since Reagan, but no Republican has ever followed through because it's not realistic. Trump knows it won't happen, but the move gets headlines, riles up his supporters, and lets him say he's fighting the deep state without actually delivering anything. It's political theater. He's also pandering to the hardcore conservative idea that federal control over education is bad, and that states should handle it. This plays well with Republican voters who hate federal overreach, especially in education, where things like race discussions, LGBTQ+ policies, and woke curriculum battles have become hot-button issues. By signing this order, he signals that he's standing up to the liberal indoctrination in schools. It's red meat for his base. But here's the reality. This is a joke as an actual policy move. Trump knows damn well that Congress won't pass it, and if it did, it would create a logistical nightmare. No serious economist, policymaker, or even most Republicans in Congress think this is a good idea. The Department of Education controls billions in student loans, school funding, and federal education programs. Without it, education would become a wild mess, where rich states thrive and poor states fall apart. Student debt would be handled by private banks, special education programs would be slashed, and public schools would take massive funding hits. It's a short-sighted, unserious move designed purely to score political points. My take? It's reckless. There's no plan to replace the Department of Education with anything functional, just let the states handle it. That's lazy policymaking. It's easy to sign an executive order, but it takes real leadership to build a better system. If Trump actually cared about education reform, he'd push for fixing the problems in the system, not just burning it down for applause. This is a stunt, not a solution. Well, all right, pretty much what I expected it to say, but I just want to ask, is there anything even good about it? Let's see what it says. The only real positive in this move is that it sparks a discussion about education reform. The Department of Education isn't perfect. It's a massive bureaucracy, and like any big government agency, it has waste, inefficiencies, and outdated policies. By pushing this, Trump is forcing people to ask, should education be handled at the federal level, or should states have more control? That's a fair debate. Some argue that local control would make education more responsive to each state's needs. Federal oversight often comes with red tape, standardized testing mandates, and regulations that some believe limit schools rather than help them. If dismantling the department meant more freedom for schools to innovate and less political interference in education, that could be a good thing. The problem is that this move isn't an actual plan, it's just blowing up the system with no replacement. If Trump had laid out a serious proposal for reform, something that cut inefficiencies, improved funding allocation, or gave states more control without eliminating essential programs, then this might be worth considering. But simply getting rid of the department without a structured alternative doesn't improve education, it just creates chaos. So the only good thing here is the conversation it started, but as an actual policy move, it's reckless and unserious. Alright, well, reckless and unserious. Okay, but what if I ask it to predict what happens next? I mean, we already know Congress probably won't let this go through, but I want to see how ChatGPT thinks the whole thing will play out in the end. So let's find out the answer. Nothing real is going to happen. Congress isn't going to pass anything to actually dismantle the Department of Education. This whole thing will get debated, people will argue about it, and then it will likely stall out every other executive order that has no clear path forward. Republicans in Congress will show support for it publicly for a while. They'll hold some committee hearings, maybe introduce a bill, but most of them know it's a long shot. Even if the House passes something, the Senate will likely block it. And if by some chance it got through Congress, the legal challenge of transferring millions in student loan debt and redistributing federal education funding would create major complications. Democrats will use this as a political argument, framing it as Trump trying to weaken federal oversight in education. Teachers' unions, student groups, and progressive politicians will rally against it, emphasizing the potential consequences for public schools. It works in their favor, so they'll keep it in the news cycle for as long as possible. Meanwhile, conservative media will highlight this as a fight against federal control, pushing the idea that Trump is standing up for school choice and state rights. But when nothing actually happens, they'll shift focus to the next big political debate. Trump supporters will still view it as a sign of his commitment to reducing government involvement in education. Within a few weeks to a couple of months, this will likely fade from the headlines as other political stories take over. It'll be brought up occasionally in Trump's campaign speeches, but without Congress passing real legislation, this executive order won't lead to major changes on its own. In the end, this is more of a symbolic move than a policy shift. Okay, well, thanks to Congress in advance for that. But I'm just curious how all this plays out in Donald Trump's head. I mean, he probably has some kind of plan if Congress actually lets this go through. So I want to let ChatGPT lay out the plan that Trump likely has and predict what would happen if Congress really approved it. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first here's a quick reminder. If you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to go ahead and hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. These are the biggest things that help YouTube show this video to more people and help the channel keep growing. Oh, and by the way, I've got a whole playlist about Donald Trump, tons of videos on pretty much everything, breakdowns and predictions on his tariffs, mass deportations, his relationship with Elon Musk, Vladimir Putin, analysis of his first month in office, and literally every major move that he's made. So be sure to check out that playlist when we're done here. I'm pretty sure you're going to find a lot in there that's worth watching. All right, now let's get back to the chat. So, now I want to find out what kind of plan Donald Trump might have in mind if Congress actually approved his move to dismantle the Department of Education, and what would really happen if it went through. And here's the answer. Trump doesn't have a real detailed plan, just a broad ideological goal. He wants to get rid of federal oversight in education and shift everything to the states. His argument is that education should be a local issue and states should decide how to run their schools without interference from Washington. If Congress somehow approved this, here's what Trump likely envisions. Trump's ideal outcome if Congress approved it. 1. Department of Education closes. Federal education funding, grants, special education, student loans is sent directly to states instead of being managed by a federal agency. States get full control over curriculum, standards, and policies without federal interference. Teachers' unions lose influence because federal regulations on things like tenure and hiring standards disappear. 2. School choice expands nationwide. Trump has always pushed for school choice, meaning parents can use public funding to send kids to private, religious, or charter schools instead of public schools. He likely envisions a nationwide voucher system where parents get government-funded vouchers and can use them to enroll kids in any school they want. Public schools would be forced to compete with private schools for funding, leading to some shutting down if students leave for other options. 3. Federal student loans get privatized. Trump's plan would likely move federal student loans into the hands of private banks instead of government agencies. This would mean higher interest rates and fewer borrower protections, but also less taxpayer money spent on forgiving debt or subsidizing loans. The argument would be that colleges should lower tuition on their own instead of relying on government loans to fund high costs. 4. States make their own education laws without federal limits. No more federal mandates on standardized testing, special education, or school accountability. Each state sets its own rules. Some might push STEM, others might ban certain topics like race, gender studies, or evolution. History and science education would vary drastically depending on the state. 5. A reduced federal role in civil rights protections. The Department of Education also enforces civil rights protections, ensuring equal access to education regardless of race, gender, or disability. If it's gone, states could weaken protections for certain groups, and the federal government would no longer intervene. What's the problem with this? Funding would become a disaster. Without federal oversight, some states would gut education budgets, while wealthier states maintain strong schools. Student debt would get worse. Private banks don't care about affordability, just profit. Interest rates would rise, and repayment protections would vanish. Education would become a political minefield. Some states would rewrite history, remove science topics, or push religious education with no federal standards in place. Final take: Trump's plan isn't a plan, it's an idea. He wants less federal control, more privatization, and more school choice, but there's no detailed roadmap on how to transition without causing major disruptions. If Congress approved it, the short-term chaos would be unavoidable, and the long-term result would be massive inequality between states. Some would handle it well, others wouldn't. The real question is whether voters actually want that level of decentralization, or if they'll push back once they realize what's at stake. Alright, well, that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments what you think and whether ChatGPT's takes line up with yours. Also, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support the channel directly, check out the links in the description. And after that, click right here to watch the video where ChatGPT breaks down Donald Trump's recent speech to Congress and fact checks what he said. Thanks for watching, click on that video, and I'll be waiting for you there.